Hi, everybody. Mark Victor Hansen here, and this is your own light show. And today we got a guy that's full of light, full of joy, full of wisdom, full of AI. And AI is big now, but it's going to be bigger during the next 5 years. And this guy is obviously from London, and you'll hear that, and now living in Dubai, where we're interviewing him. But he is one of the more extraordinary minds of our time, and you're going to hear why I like, love, respect, and admire a book which he just published called Our Moment. And he's going to tell you why everybody is falling in love with it, getting mesmerized by it, and you will too. Welcome, my friend, Michael Clark. How are you today, sir?
I am very good. It's an honor to be here, actually. I'm, over the moon to be here and talk to you about the book and dive into it in a bit more, because there's been so many questions and I can't think of a better person to run through this with than yourself. So I'm super excited.
Well, bless your heart. I'm excited to be with you. Tell us why you wrote Our Moment. What inspired you at the depth of your being to bring this book, which is full of light and joy and insight, out?
You know, you touched on AI in the opening. I think there's so much noise and confusion and different opinions about all of this. And I sometimes think we forget there's a human in the center of all of this. And part of me also wondered, is this an opportunity to do something different? Are we really living our full potential, and are we using the technology in the way that it could be used? And is there a different way? And in a way, that's where the title came from, because the title, I felt that this is probably a moment that we might not get again, where we can revisit the way we learn, the way we teach, the way we live, and the way that we interact with technology. I felt like this was a moment also to remind us of some of the opportunities that we missed in the past, and some of the things that we could put right in this moment of amazing technology, let's be honest. But I think we have an opportunity to rethink the way we want the future to be, not just for ourselves, but the generations that follow us in a way.
I love it, because the choice is, ladies and gentlemen, he's saying, when I was a graduate school at Bucky Fuller, said we either get to have utopia or oblivion. We get to either have the greatest time ever or dystopia, the worst time ever. And that moment is really ours, because when we transform, the world transforms. And when Michael and I talked the first time, we talked about comparing this with the world's best-selling single book, and that is called The Alchemist by a great man in Brazil. But tell us why you think this compares with The Alchemist, Michael.
So I'm not going to lie, that book was a complete inspiration to my writing. And look, the reason it resonated with me so much is the power of story. That book is solely built on the power of a story that touches everybody, and a story that we all remember. And in a way, that drove my writing style, because look, there was a lot of complexity to boil into this. But then the question I had to myself was, how can I make a story that people would remember? And The Alchemist then became front and center in my mind, because one, the story gave us a hero to believe in. And I think we always remember the one. And The Alchemist taught me that, look, if people remember this story, but also they remember the lead character, then in a way I'm winning, because the underlying messaging of the book becomes driven by a powerful story. And maybe, and I think you said this when we first met, maybe the world is looking for another story to believe in, and maybe another alchemist. And that's what I hope with this book, is this becomes a story we believe in, but also a hero we want to fight for, and a possibility that we could have if we ask the right questions and we believe in ourselves a bit more.
Well, first of all, yes, on all counts. And I read The Alchemist 3 times because it was so deeply, penetratingly, because it's a hero's journey, like you said, and a hero's journey. It was the first one since Siddhartha wrote An Eightfold Path for Human Beings, which you may or may not have read. And then that was obviously taken up by George Lucas, who made Star Wars and everything else, because he read the mythology stated by Campbell. And Campbell said, a myth is something that never was and always is. And your story is resolutely elevating to consciousness, to awareness. And let's talk about your first main character, because everyone falls in love with him. And I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I reread his book this morning. Obviously, we read it when it was done. And I'll let you do that, answer the question. But I just want to show you how well it is. He starts, the dream that stayed somewhere. Something is incredible. is waiting to be known. Carl Sagan. I get goosebumps reading that. So that's his header. And then it goes on, the rain wasn't real. Not entirely. It fell in a steady rhythm, artificially seeded to cleanse the air, wash the streets, and keep the illusion of order alive. Go ahead. He's got a character in this book, which before he gets talking again, if I could insist and make it voluntarily mandatory that you invest in this book, not for you, but for your family and all the heirs that you're going to have, because it's that kind of book. This is going to be a treasure in your library. Take it away, Michael. What about the character? Who's the main?
So the main character. So it's worth remembering. So that the character I created in the beginning, in a way, became a metaphor. So I needed a symbol that people could relate to. So in the beginning, it was like, okay, he needs to be a boy, but he can't be too young because otherwise none of the things said to him would mean anything and he wouldn't be believable. So I made him around about 16 or 17, even though I don't say his age. And I made him that age because I felt that after a certain point, most of us don't know the world any different. So it made sense for him to be a boy because he would be experiencing things for the first time, like a lot of us. So the lead character, Ezra, in the book, like any good hero's journey, he had to feel loss, but he also had to feel a dream of the world that could be and the world that might be. And those two driving factors drive him on to that hero's journey, a journey of discovery, but also a journey of belief, and a journey of then where he becomes a representation of all of us rather than just something for himself.
I love it. And Ezra is somebody that will be branded into your brain, etched in the fabric of your being. But everybody, you just got done talking in Silicon Valley to the who's who of great thinkers. And they not only fell in love and like with you, but I couldn't be at that one, but I assisted you in getting there with our great friend, Nick Larson. He said, look, nobody would leave for 2 hours. They were enchanted with you, enchanted with the story, obviously invested in all of them bought the book because it was easy to do. But why does everyone get mesmerized with this story? What is it that galvanizes their soul to it?
So it was really humbling in the beginning because I drip fed people I trusted with chapters. And I purposely only gave them 2 chapters, which was the first 2. And it was almost like a drug. They kept on coming back to me because I want more. And I think it was because one of the things I really wanted people to do is feel like they were in the story. I wanted them to feel it. So whilst I wrote it like The Alchemist, I also used the cinematography of like Blade Runner. So I made people imagine the rain. I made people feel it. And it's almost like people forgot they were reading a book and they actually felt like they were in the story and they were part of it. And that's how I wanted to write it. I wanted to write it in such a way where you were in the story. You could feel his pain. You could feel his fear. You could feel the rain. You could smell it. You could touch it. And I think that's what people are feeling. And it's also making them aware of things that they didn't know, which blew my mind in terms of the feedback I've had, because in a way it's how I wanted people to feel. And it's so pleasing that's the feedback I'm getting. So
2 things. First of all, as you know, Isaacson wrote the great book by Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple Computer, along with Wozniak and all that. And we can go into that story, but he released a chapter at a time, just like you did. And what happened is that people got so enamored, so entrained that when the book came out, it rocked to the top, which is what's going to happen now as your book just gets released. So it's a mesmerizing message. So who is the message for right now?
So it's really funny. The original manuscript was a bit all over the place because it was not written like it is today. I would say the book is written for all of us. And it's written for a generation that maybe doesn't know any different. It's written for a generation that might be lost in all the noise of all this technology. It's written for a group of people who may be wondering, is this it? Or are there better things that we could be better getting from the technology? And it's also written for those who can make change. It's written for the people who are thinking about where the world should be going, and they now have a path that's open to them that they can actually make a difference that we all benefit from. So in a way, I found a way of telling a story that would touch all of us in a moment where there is so much noise and so much confusion and fear around some of this technology. It's a story, hopefully, that we can all believe in, but it's a story that can be true rather than necessarily just be something of fiction, because that's not what it is. I just happened to tell a story which embedded facts and possibilities that are true and give us options.
Well, I keep saying two things because each thing you triggered from the very beginning of a friendship was, number one, is Shakespeare wrote for every man and every woman and every person. And obviously I had to read that when I was in English, starting back in high school, and absolutely got enamored. And I said, someday I'd like to write like Willie does, as they say euphemistically, Stratford on the A11. And then the second thing is, as you know, they're delaying the release of the movie that's of that book that sold 150 million copies, Alchemist. But I think your book's going to do that. And you and I, from the very beginning, said, hey, wait a second, this has movie ability, if you don't mind, movie and then hyphen ability, because what we need now is stories so people can think. Because what you said is there's noise and signal. And some of you don't know the discernment. Signal is when you're on purpose. Elon Musk is the most signal-oriented individual, and some people get with him, start shaking their head and go, can this guy not do noise? Can he not just say, how are you today? Is your health okay? Is your wife okay? And mundane, superfluous stuff, whereas you're hitting emotionally a signal that resonates with everyone's heart. And then they say, hey, wait a second, I can rip off the old. I can rip off the self-limiting beliefs. I can get rid of the slowdown. I can rip my shirt out, metaphorically speaking, like Superman or Superwoman. Take it away, sir.
Yeah, 100%. And, a big part of the book is the subtitle, right? It's a story of destiny and human potential, because a big realization in the writing of the book is not one of us have actually ever hit our human potential, I don't think. Part of it's because of the way we've been taught. Part of it is limiting beliefs with technology or just limiting access to technology. So the whole, what you're describing is spot on. It was, how do we give all of us like a North Star to shoot for and a hero to believe in and a signal that we can all follow, and almost use this, to quote the book, a moment to actually ask a different set of questions and put the human in the center. And at the same time, potentially take AI to a level that none of us could ever imagine in a good way, rather than some of the limitations that we're putting on it today, which, okay, what limitations? Well, some of it is access to it that people just don't have, that if they did could be wonderful. But also at the same time, there are gaps and choices that we're making that are, I would say, limiting its potential and ours. And again, the book is pointing to possibility and choices.
Well, that's what life's about. Increasing your spiritual, mental, physical, financial, emotional freedom with using AI as a tool. And like AI has just built a new machine called the MedBed, which purportedly de-ages us half of what we are. So where I'm 77, I'll go back to 38. Well, that couldn't happen without AI, because AI, I mean, you're the expert in here, I am not, but it thinks magnitudes better, whether it's 100 times, 1,000 times, or 1,000,000 times better. It shows that there could be the transformation, and each of us can come up to our 100%, because, like I told you on the first call, I plan to live to be 127th options for renewal. So I got 50 years, but every day that I live gets, Ray Kurzweil says it so well as the world's greatest living futurist, every day you live adds another year to your life, because there's so many breakthroughs happening medically, physically, financially, nutraceutically, and otherwise. So take it off. Talk about some of the infinite possibility. If we start to hit our 100% times 8.4 billion people, wow, what happens?
Yeah. So think about this. What about, preventative healthcare, preventative medicine? Some of the things I touched on in the book, Elon Musk has done amazing things with rockets to space, bringing them back down again, but not one of us has a single view of our health. So can you imagine if we did? Imagine if all of this data was suddenly connected. What if we all were educated with abilities rather than just getting a job? All of a sudden, with an AI as our collaborative partner, my goodness, what could you do? So these are some of the things that the book opens up to us when we start looking at data differently, when we start looking at AI as not a threat, but as a partner. The way that it starts using the data that it knows about us, but then each of us has our own unique ability to be able to use it and read it in a way that we understand that we probably haven't been able to in the past. That's massive. Imagine all the data that we have about us that's so disparate and all over the place. All our health information, all our travel information, all our music tastes, and suddenly all of that was connected, and we were able to understand it in a way that we don't today, with a machine that's working for us, just for me, just for you. That is limitless in terms of what that can be, which is a very different future than the one that's being painted today. And the key to the heart of that is, it's not about technology being better than us. It's about technology partnering with us to unlock our human potential, and hopefully helping us live as long as you're suggesting, which I don't disagree with. But I think, having the right tools and the right belief system in ourselves, as well as the technology, has a big part to play.
Well, it's so exciting. Let's stay with Elon Musk just 1 second more, because I'm a scholar in him, and the thing he's doing on health is called Neuralink, and he has got wheelchair-bound people becoming ambulatory again with Neuralink. He's got deaf people able to hear for the first time, and blind people able to see. All of tests are done and in, just like he's got, the humanoid robot called Optimus, is basically driving his robotic cars. And we're in the most exciting time in human history, because what you said just now, which I think is beyond brilliant, is the machine is going to work for you about you and your healthcare and say, hey, wait a second. Maybe you forgot to take your vitamin D3 today, and if you don't get out in the sun for 15 minutes, and you and I are in places with high incidence of sun, I don't know how much you go out in the sun in Dubai, but it sure exists, and sometimes 128 degrees. So who should pick up this book called One Moment today?
So I think it's people. I think it touches, when you ask me who the book is for, I think that the real people that should read this book, I think we should all read it, really. But in a way, it's the people who maybe are wondering, is this it? Like, is this all we're ever going to reach? Can we do more? And I think that the whole purpose of the book, and it comes down to the impact I want the book to make, is for all us to question whether is the technology going in the direction that we want it to go? And are we actually realizing the potential that we could have? And maybe not. And those are the people that I want to read the book, which is as many people as possible, because I know that this technology is destabilizing a lot in terms of, there's worries about jobs, there's worries about what does it mean for future generations, what does it mean for work. This book will answer all of those questions and then give you an answer and a direction. Because one thing I didn't want to do in writing this book was just leave you wanting answers. I wanted not to just give you the what and the why, but I wanted to sprinkle some how, because then for the people who can make change, they will then give us the things that the technology should give us, in a way, which is that unlocking of human potential and creativity and all of those things that we should all aspire to.
So talk about the benefits. What are they going to get as they read this, or the benefits? What are the how that they'll be able to change their thinking and therefore change their results?
So actually, it's really interesting. So a lot of people have reached out to me, particularly about the sections on education and how we teach our children and the abilities. I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, look, should I be homeschooling my children? What should the things I should be teaching them? So I think as a parent, one of the benefits you're going to get from this, or even as an individual, is a new way of learning and a new way of thinking. Those are some of the things that people are going to take away, because there's been a lot of fear about AI and, what does it mean for the next generation? What should they be learning? How do they take advantage of this technology? People immediately are going to know, like, okay, these are the things I should be learning today and tomorrow to take advantage of this technology, but also future-proof my career. That's a big thing someone's going to take away. The second thing someone's going to take away is the real revolution here isn't technology, it's humanity. It's the human. It's us and our role with technology. And that's what people are going to take away. And the benefits outweigh the fear, because they're going to learn how this technology can benefit in their lives. They're going to learn how to approach it in a different way. There's going to be things in here they've not thought about, which are going to be benefits that, they wouldn't have thought through. Like, I can say them to you now, but everybody who I've given this book through has taken their own piece of it away and applied it into their own life as a benefit. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's one or two things, but I've actually been really surprised, particularly with parents and children who've read it and have learned about their culture that they didn't know, and answer some questions they didn't know, and also give them a path that they probably was feeling uncertain.
Good. Well, let's go to the path in a second, but first, tell me why it future-proofs your career, because you're right. So much people have so much anxiety, so much fear, so much doubt, and am I good enough? And the big companies like Microsoft lay off 10,000 people, and that sends it through the whole world, including all the data centers and that, and the people are scared. And how do you future-proof? Right thinking leads to right action, which would lead to right results. So that would be future-proofing, because if you don't know how to think about AI, which is what you're teaching, and you don't catch the message, then you are in a lose-lose. Whereas if they read this book, they're going to be in a win-win. Is that correct? Am I hearing you right?
Correct. And to answer your question, how? So let's look at the world logically as it is. Realistically, our children have been taught to get a job. That's kind of what the education system has come from, in terms of a very old, outdated industrial model.
Right.
And AI, in a way, is a mirror, really, because it's displaying back to us all our faults and all our bias, but also some of the things that we should have addressed a long time ago. So the way that we stay ahead is we actually teach people abilities, not necessarily jobs. Yes. So what we do is we teach people the abilities that they need to thrive, which is things like critical thinking, the ability to debate, the ability to reason, the ability to unlearn, which I would argue is a skill that not many of us have. But also, right? So even myself, right, struggle with unlearning. But ironically, by learning abilities, it means you become a meaningful partner to technology. Because whether we like to admit it to ourselves or not, AI now owns knowledge and speed, because it's faster than I will ever be to actually interpret knowledge or to find it. That doesn't mean it has wisdom. And actually, that's what we need to teach people, is a cornerstone of this is also wisdom, the ability to interpret knowledge and know what to do with it, and when to do with it, and know what's real and what's not. So these abilities and foundations also make us tap into what makes us all unique. And that's a real part of the messaging in the book, is that we're all unique, but we all become amplified in the right way when we use technology. And that's how we future-proof ourselves. It's not about, whether a job would exist in 20 years or not. It's whether or not we have the ability to adapt and be fluid enough as people. And that's what people will learn in the book. A part of it is, what are those abilities that we need, and what are those things that we should be striving for as people? So again, I come back to that concept of potential, so we can all reach it.
So two things. First of all, the first line in Survival of the Fittest by Darwin was not that you're going to survive if you're fit. It's survive if you're adaptable, which is what you just said. Yeah. And that adaptability comes back to the other thing you just said, which is back to what I say. You're not a 3D person. You're actually 4Ds. And it's in the fourth dimension, which, when neuroscientists like neurologists and pediatric neuroscientist Ben Carson says, when we cut into your brain, you don't pull out, there's a picture of your house, there's a picture of your wife, your kids, your grandkids. There's really, that's here somewhere, right? In the imagination, in the thinkability. And that's what you're doing, is you're saying, look, let's escalate, let's ascend to new states of wisdom in the story. People only learn really with stories, not with linear facts. And your story is so mesmerizing that they drink it. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, I've read it again more than once, that it's a page turner, and you go, I get it. So talk to that.
Yeah. So part of it was also, how do we use this moment as a catalyst for change? So a real catalyst moment. And that's the aha moment in the book, is that people start, as you've nailed it, like people just start to get it. They start seeing the gaps and they spot the opportunities, and they get it, and they say, well, actually, we could do this differently, right? And there is, that 4D that you're describing, which is actually, if we take a step back, it's not yes or no, it could be maybe. And actually, there's another dimension here, another element that we should be exploring as as a regulator, as an individual. The reason The Alchemist was so powerful is because it made us realize the answer was within ourselves, and there was a story to believe in. And I think the part of the power of this book is that the answers in the book are within ourselves, and we actually, ironically, have the power to set the direction of the technology in ourselves if we choose to. It's just, this was an opportunity to give people the path, which again is that 4D that you're mentioning, which is that other perspective on top of those existing perspectives that give us the choice.
So is the book purely fiction, or is it a guide in a disguised story?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because the original book was really dull and really boring, and it was just all facts, and it was like I didn't even read it. I just hated it. So I think what makes this book a bit unique is it is a crossover in a way. The story is the fiction, but the facts are real. So the things he finds and the things he learns are all real. They're not made up. And the way that we can change is not made up. That is all real. All those things that are described in the book actually exist and could be given to policymakers and people today. But the actual hero's journey and the story to believe in and the characters and the world building, all of that is fiction. So in a way, I was somehow able to blend multiple genres together to make a book format that is completely unique, I think, because I almost blended philosophy, the poetry style of The Alchemist with the facts of Noah Hari, but then also a how. So I combined almost like 3 readers of different genres and then my own spin on it as myself to then create something truly unique as almost like a hybrid of fact and fiction and story, as a way that would touch every single person alive.
Well, as you know, when we started, I said, you got to have 3 things to have a bestseller book. It's got to be original. Yours is totally, wonderfully, blissfully original. You call it unique. Number 2, it's got to be transformative. And obviously it's been transformative to you because it's had you rethink, but more importantly, transformative to the reader. And then number 3, it's got to be inevitable that everyone that hears the story, reads the story, and soon I think it'll be on the big screens within a couple of years, you're going to transform more and more, and the book's just going to keep rocking and selling. So I think our moments can also be your moment, if you don't mind my saying so. And I'd like you to talk to what is your vision of what happens, and do a prelude that we did before we got on. What happened when that person saw the cover back in Dubai where you printed some books just for your special neighbors?
So, the cover was like the hardest thing, and then it just took a life on its own. I got someone to print it here because I wanted a version to give to VIP, which was gold leaf. So the writing is gold leaf. And when the printer called me, they said like the cover is just mesmerizing because it feels old, and it feels like, even it's not black, it's like an off black. In the VIP version, I made the pages cream, so it felt ancient because it almost wanted to feel like philosophy. And it just, so the actual cover, it means multiple things. So the cover is obviously the lead character. The book is the book that he finds. There's the part in the book where he doubts himself and he speaks to the sky, and that's the moon. And then the arc is the arc of change. So the whole cover has all the elements knitted together to mean something. And obviously then the hour moment is front and center. So yeah, the cover, if anything, grabs people in the very beginning because it's totally unique, but it also is, all the elements are a representation of the story.
Now, I've got 4 favorite American presidents, and one of them was Thomas Jefferson. He said, if your candle, for whatever reason, has been blown up and mine's lit, light yours and mine doesn't take anything from mine but makes the world 4-fold brighter. Well, that's what your book does. Talk to us about the spark that ignites the thinking, that ignites the movement, that ignites the transformation so we can go towards utopia, like I said earlier, rather than oblivion.
So it's weirdly starting to happen, and I kind of never imagined it to be this fast. I wanted to write a book, and there was some intentional things I did that I've never talked about. One of them was I purposely made sure that no chapter was longer than 1,800 words, because I learned something. I actually am lucky enough to know someone who knows Paulo, who wrote The Alchemist. And I heard a story that he said to this other person when he asked him to critique his writing. Paulo wasn't very nice in his response. And what he said to him was, he said, you're trying to show how clever you are by using too much ego in your writing and too many fancy words. And secondly, he said, the real skill in writing is not writing 20,000 words. It's cutting it down to 10,000. That's the real skill. So I wanted to make sure to build a movement, you had to write a book in such a way that people could give it to someone. It was small enough and it was engaging enough that you would give it to someone as a friend. It would be one of those books. And the way it becomes a movement and it's happening is because it's a moment in time. Everybody that reads it is thinking the same thing or was looking for a story that touched them or was looking for a different perspective on the technology that we're seeing today, or just wanted just another, they just feel a gap. They just feel like we're not hitting something. We're not doing as much as we could. And that's where the movement is kicking in. And what's exciting is it's touching different generations, which was always my goal. It's a younger generation who care about different things. Look, there's a generation that exists that doesn't care about price. They care about how we treat the planet. They care about ESG. They have other value systems. And this is how you build a movement off this book. Is it's a generation that may want technology to be done in a different way and in a way that benefits them and others around them. So that's how that movement is growing. One that's blown me away is people who I've just met are giving this book to famous people. They're giving it to regulators. They're giving it. Someone told me this morning they've given it to someone at the UN. Because the story is touching them. Because everybody's asking the same thing. What do we do with AI? What do we do with the children of the next generation? And it just feels like, the book is answering a lot of questions that people are asking, and it's sparking something inside of people that I hoped would happen. Is just happening faster than I thought it would, which is amazing. It's like, I never thought like someone would say to me, oh, by the way, I've just given it to UNICEF this morning and I've given it to some people at the UN. And I've also given it to a few other people. And it's mind-blowing and completely humbling, to be honest. I hoped it would do this. And look, my overall goal, as cheesy as it sounds, was to do something where I could leave this place better than I found it. And in a way, that's the goal of the book, is to leave this place better than we found it and hopefully get us all to believe in ourselves. So that's the movement. The movement is for everybody who reads this book to actually want us to reach our potential that we could reach and ask ourselves, could we do something better? And that's how you build a movement, is where we finally realize the answer was within us all along.
One last question. What is the question that you think needs to be asked about this book and you're being passionately on purpose that no one's asked you yet?
Oh.
If it was easy, it wouldn't be our moment.
What's the question nobody's asked me yet? So Carol, the executive editor, we've had so much fun with this.
She's in love with your mind. I just tell you, and our females in the staff said to tell you you're cute. So
that's so kind. One thing that no one's really asked me is like, where do the characters come from?
Yeah.
And also, where did the ideas for some of the scenes come from? Because this was all new to me. Like I'd never done world building before. I'd never had to deal with character arcs and things like that. And I have to tell you, like, I shamelessly stole from my favorite movies. A lot of the characters actually come from my favorite movies.
Perfect.
One of the characters is actually Harrison Ford from Blade Runner. I'm not going to tell people which one it is.
Yep.
One of the characters is a combination. One of that character is Jeffrey Price from Men in Black. And he's also the Collector from Guardians of the Galaxy. So, but also some of them come from Star Wars. Some of them come from, Ezra is obviously Santiago from The Alchemist. He is shamelessly stolen as that lead character with doubt and fear. Some of the world building scenes come from the movie Heat, particularly where I wanted emotional connection between characters. So when you said the book is worthy of a movie, is because I followed the principles of script writing and movies. I had to create highs and lows, and I learned to create arcs. No one's really ever asked me, like, what was the hardest thing about writing the book, actually. And do you know, the hardest thing was two things. One was making sure that my character developed through the book. There's actually three things, actually. The second thing was giving characters distinct voices and their own identity. That was really hard. That was like something I'd never had to do. And I think the third thing, which I actually mentioned on a podcast just now, is what was the hardest thing when the book was over. And I underestimated what this would feel like. And you know, probably better than everybody, it's a void. I actually feel sad for a very long time, because part of me was so invested in the book. I think is how, maybe I was told just recently, is how athletes feel when they achieve what they set out to achieve. There's almost like this emptiness and this void. So yeah, you know, I'm answering some questions that probably you would ask me, but you know, it's like, what do you feel like when the book is finished? Where did the inspiration from the characters? And when I do an Audible for the book, I don't intend just to read the book myself. I'm hoping I'll explain some of this on the Audible as well. And hopefully these will be some of the questions that people haven't asked me that I'm going to answer for them. But yeah, there was so many hard things in the writing that I underestimated in writing a book like this. And actually figuring out all the problems that had to be fixed was the easy bit. The hard bit was knitting it together and world building. And like I said, all of those things, very new to me. But do you know what? They were the things that made me really fall in love with writing, because the books that follow, the writing style has opened a door that I hadn't even imagined. So yeah, look, we could go on and on about those questions that nobody's asked me, but the book itself touched me in ways that I hadn't thought, left a void, but taught me a lot, but also allowed me the creativity, freedom to actually tap into the things that inspired me as I grew up, which I think is a true gift.
Well, like I told you when we first began this little process a while back, you're going to have sequels and prequels, and you've just talked to that because no one wants that void, and your potential is just starting. Back to your question, the spark has been lit, and it's getting into a roaring flame. Ladies and gentlemen, go to wherever fine books are sold, and that includes Amazon, because some of you are like, you're listening literally from around the world. I've seen the names from the Caribbean and from the Middle East and everywhere down at the bottom of the screen. I don't know if you see that on the screen, but get the book by my friend Michael Clark, Our Moment, wherever fine books are sold. And Amazon, if you order it, they'll ship it out to you immediately. He's soon to do the Audible. You're going to fall in love with this guy. Also, I'll do one more thing. He will be doing a world tour, as we chatted about, and go on his website, which he's going to dictate to you right now. What is it, your website?
So we're just finishing it off, actually. So the website will be my name. So it'll be michaelclark.ai. That'll be out in the next few days. There is a website for the book itself, which is live, which is ourmoment.ai. There's a 30-second movie trailer that I did for the book to start teasing interest. We are toying with the idea of actually doing other trailers and bringing the characters to life using technology. So yeah, there's the Our Moment website, and then there's also the Michael Clark website that will go live. There will be, the old manuscript still lives. So my intention is actually to publish some short stories and some original manuscript pieces on the website that'll be available to people as well. So there'll be lots of stuff. If you actually sign up to the ourmoment.ai website and order the book, you also get access to a free chapter of the book as well, which is chapter 1, which hopefully helps as much as it helped other people.
So without delay, order yourself a copy of Our Moment by my friend Michael Clark. You're going to be thanking us in your prayers that you did it. Michael, thanks for doing this great interview. You do a superb job. You're a brilliant, wise thinker. Thank you.
No, I appreciate you, Michael, as always.
Okay. Thank you.